Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the North South podcast with me, Dave Allenson, and my lovely co-host,
Andrew Hardwick.
We've decided that today we're going to talk about the value of strength and conditioning and the difficult job that coaches have in trying to explain how useful a long-term investment like strength and conditioning can be for you. And also where I think a lot of coaches fall down in trying to explain it and where the sell becomes easier and where it becomes harder. So we are going to talk about why it matters, but we're also going to talk about some of the ways in which coaches talk about strength and conditioning and why it looks different in different contexts. Because I think sometimes one of the things we were talking about off air was coaches who've worked and come up through certain backgrounds in terms of who they've coached often assume that environment is very similar for everyone. Whereas if you've worked like we have with a lot of grapplers and a lot of MMA fighters, especially lower than like high level pro, it's a very different conversation that you need to have with people and very different ways in which you need to talk about it for people to understand the value in what they're doing. So
yeah, I think a really, really important thing, and this is the real difficulty in this industry, and unless you're in the industry, this is where it can be so hard to navigate, is context is always king when it comes to understanding decision making. And sometimes from a coaching lens, I think this is something that I'm guilty of forgetting and something I have to continue to remind myself of. But I think we often talk about this idea of constraint, don't we, in terms of this podcast, in terms of especially when it leads to skill development in terms of using it on the mats. But like, I think understanding reasoning as to why certain coaches talk about certain things in certain ways can be a constraint can be a really useful tool to assess that. So we were talking, like you just mentioned, obviously certain coaches come from professional environments that maybe they've worked in team sports, whether it's football, whether it's rugby, even individual sports, tennis, whatever it is. And I think one of the difficulties that strength and conditioning has as an industry, whether regardless of that level, is it's always trying to justify its worth. And within that, if you're working in a professional environment, so you're working in a professional organisation, whether it's football, again, rugby, name the sport, Olympic sports, as a coach, you're always having to justify that. And one of the primary ways that we justify worth is through analytics, isn't it? It's X percentage has gone up, X lift has gone up, injury rate has dropped X percent, VO2 max has gone up X percent. And what that can also do is, whilst it is a fantastic resource in terms of measuring an athlete's progress, the difficult strength conditioning is that also can mean fuck all. So that can also mean nothing. In that, yeah, all right, the VO2 max has gone up, but they've just been beat 3-0. So like, what are you trying to, like, how is that getting my players better at doing their job? And I think that can be really, and you can definitely swing the other way in terms of you get a lot of coaches who go, well, none of it matters, so we'll just do X, Y, and Z. And finding that balance point from strength conditioning, and this is where it can be really confusing as a consumer, is because if we're going, well, what's the answer? They're going, okay, I don't know what to do here. One influencer's telling me to do this. I've got this coach who's giving me graphs and data and statistics that I couldn't give a shit about. like, where's my ball point? And it's so hard to find that balance between, okay, we've got some like quantifiable, objective measure in terms of, well, this is really, really useful. We know if you can do X amount of weight that your risk of injury drops, you're a more robust, more capable human being, whilst also having this human experience side of like, I just want to get better at something. I'm not really too fussed. Like, and it's important to recognize that, because I think we were talking about it off air, weren't we? Whereas like, sometimes I look at some of these coaches that make unbelievable content, especially from a strength conditioning standpoint. You're going like, oh, that's really insightful. But I'm like, have you actually been in a room and spoken to these people? Because I obviously run a gym. I'm sat in a fucking gym. Obviously, you go into gyms a lot. Go and speak, go and speak to these people, because they don't give a shit. They don't care if their VO2 max has gone up 5%. They just want to know, am I going to get fitter that's going to help me on the mats? You know what I mean? And it's such a fine line between the two.
Yeah. And I think it's a really important point that and people will make this point. They're like, oh, well, it's not going to make me any better at jiu-jitsu, is it? Like, no, of course it's not. Otherwise, it would be called jiu-jitsu. Like, we do have to keep the strength and conditioning and the sport separate. And one of the pitfalls people will fall into is kind of Gota and WEC and all these kinds of things where they're obsessed. They've gone too far in the other direction with trying to find what they assume is transfer. And it just means you end up with these sort of semi-skilled movements that are very underloaded and provide very little transfer because they're so highly skilled. Like, the more skillful a movement is, the more carefully you have to make sure it actually matches the sporting skill. Because if you've got something that's similar, but is high skill, to something in the sport that is kind of similar, that is also high skill, you're more likely to make them worse at the thing in the sport than you are to make them better. And that's why, like, the work of Verkhoshansky and others was very clear on this is the developmental pyramid. And it's also why we've talked about this before, but why that usually only works in stopwatch or what is it? Like yardstick sports. So like track and field, because you can add an exercise in because you know that person's going to be throwing every week. And you go, did we start throwing further? No.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's also,
did it
like
get worse? Get it out of the program.
There's two very quantifiable metrics, isn't there? It's like, if you've got a sprinter, you have a time that is the measuring stick. So if I do X amount of weight on a squat, does my 10-yard time increase? Does my 50-meter time increase? Does my, I don't know, whatever it is, you've got very objective measurements that you can go, we did this, it transferred to this. Whereas in sports that don't have that, again, a lot of sports don't have that. Again, named all those team sports, but combat sports is a real big example of that, is you can do X in the gym, but we've got no real way of measuring that outside of a perceptive feeling. There is some objective data in terms of, like, I mean, this requires a large amount of technology, but like, let's say, for example, you're looking at a boxer and you could go, right, we've been doing aerobic sprints on the bike. Has their punch output increased over a 2-minute round? Now that can provide, but then you've also got the question of, like, well, yeah, the punch out might have increased, but was it effective? Were they actually hitting anything? Yeah. And it's like, and that's where it starts to get.
Are they just windmilling in?
Yeah, are they just like fucking pumping jabs? Like, is it actually doing anything? Is it having any impact? So it's this is where it starts to get really confusing especially from a consumer standpoint.
But that's the point of a coach, is those are the difficult things that we have to think through, and those are the things that we have to grapple with, is like, is the juice worth the squeeze in trying to break this down? So, like, yes, I can look at what heart rates I'm likely to hit in grappling, and that can be useful to me. But if I improve them, will that make me better at grappling? It might give me a better baseline that I can work from and I'm able to play with stuff more. But I might also just start to completely rely on my gas tank as a way to win. And against a highly skilled opponent who also has a great gas tank, they're going to beat me because I can't take them into deep waters. It's always use this example, but Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, like, part of the reason Nate Diaz was able to beat him in the first fight is he is, as long as he doesn't get knocked the fuck out, he is Conor's kryptonite, because he will just take you into deep waters and look at you and watch you drown, as he did in the first fight. And then in the second, he, what happened. But there was all this talk of making Conor into Nate and he's going to fight 5 rounds. Well, he can't, because it's not how he fights. His technical and tactical approach doesn't rely on physiology that he doesn't have. You can spend all that time trying to turn a sprinter into, there's the phrase that some American football coaches like to use of, like, you can't turn they've got different ones. It's like, can't turn a tractor into a Ferrari, and you can't turn a Ferrari into a tractor. So it's talking about, like, players who are fucking incredible at sprinting but can't take too many hits. And then you've got other players in American football who they're all right at sprinting, like by your or my standards, they're phenomenal, but they will just blow people out of the water when they make contact with them. But you can't turn one into the other. You can make them closer to it, but your natural capabilities and the way that you like to compete and the way that you like to do your sport will ultimately affect how useful the strength and conditioning is. So I think the simplest sell that most of us can make is, if you consistently stick to strength and conditioning, you will be more physically robust. So
Well,
it's why my name is what it is.
I think that's a very clear thing that we should probably define further. Is that generally speaking, and this isn't, you could probably actually not say it generally. You could probably categorize this as true. The best people generally can handle more, and whether that's more training, whether that's more, like you said, physicality, whether that's simply their
More
ability to
intensity.
tolerate, intensity, whether it's simply to tolerate a mental load, like their systems and their bodies. Obviously, when I say systems, is in like their physical systems, like are generally capable of handling more. So it means they can do more work, they can maintain a higher level, whatever that is, that whatever that context of handling more means, they can generally do that better than everybody else. Now, what does that mean from the majority of people? We both work in a sport where 99.9% of the people, well, in every sport that's the case. Every sport, 99.9% of the people don't need to worry about that 1%, because in the nice possible way, I don't want to break it to you, for those that are listening, you're probably not going to be that 1%. And that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we take that as a general analogy, we just backfeed that to our job from a strength and conditioning standpoint is to put you in a position to just be able to do more, to be able to train more, to be able to handle more, to be able to recover more, to do all of that stuff.
Yeah. And to be able to recover from injuries sort of more quickly than you would otherwise, or for those injuries to be more minimal than they would be because you have a physically denser knee, or ligament, or the whole structure itself is capable of more because you've consistently trained and eaten and built it up. Like, I think it's the bit people miss from, especially around contact and combat sports. So to go back to your point about like when we were talking about the stopwatch sports, it's really obvious when someone has improved at that because they're not very chaotic environments. Now, I'm not downplaying the skill. I'm not saying that there isn't a huge psychological element. Usually in sports where there is less chaos, there is an even bigger psychological element because you can beat yourself before you start. The most like extreme example I can think of is like darts. Like darts, there's no chaos there in terms of no one's allowed to jostle you. Yeah, but no one's allowed to be near you. No one's allowed to interfere with you. If like people get in trouble if they like breathe weird or make noises and stuff, and it's very, very much you and similar to golf. If you're, I would imagine it's you and that. Now there's a crowd, there's noise, there's all of those things, but it's not like the other guy can walk up and just go shove you while you throw the dart. Like it's not a pub, and that means the demands are different. Not necessarily easier, they're just different. Whereas in contact sports, and especially team sports, and more so in MMA and jiu-jitsu, which are solo contact sports and combat sports, you have a lot of chaos. And that's why when people go, oh, this definitely transfers. How the fuck can anyone prove anything transfers in a sport that's so chaotic that you can have, like, I don't know, let's take heavyweight UFC. You can take people who are highly, highly skilled. So, what's his name? The guy who was the previous champion who broke all the records and nobody cared. And he was like a firefighter and...
Oh, Stipe Miocic.
Yeah, Stipe Miocic. Absolutely phenomenal athlete, like magnificent technical understanding, just beautiful. Like the light heavyweights thought he was brilliant. I probably should have fought at light heavyweight, but absolutely dominant. And then you've got someone who, like Francis Ngannou, whose just output is just insane. Like what Stipe can game plan, he can do all of these things, and eventually, if Francis just figures out enough, the sheer physical deficit between those two humans means that you it's like someone once asked a group of older guys at jiu-jitsu. He's an MMA fighter, and he asked if, do you think you could beat prime Mike Tyson? And I just started laughing. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, if you could do like full jiu-jitsu. And I was like, no. What do you think I am? Like, I'm aware of how different a species that man is from me. Like, all it takes him, I've got to dance around till hopefully he gets tired. and the whole time avoid getting my fucking head caved in.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
no, the scariest man alive. And it's, I think coaches can lose sight of that, especially if they haven't played sport themselves, that, there are just people out there who they're just a different beast. Like
yeah,
the technical rules don't really apply.
yeah. And even if that's just the mindset stuff, and I hate using the word mindset
Yeah.
because
The
it
well,
just
the Meow
automatically,
Brothers. Oh yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna heel hook them. Well, good luck
yeah,
with that, because they'll
yeah.
just
Well,
look at you and smile, and then
there's nothing to heal up. We got no fucking ligaments left.
or Ash Williams talking about his ankle.
Yeah, and that is the thing. It's like, I think I had a conversation with a client the other day about this, and she's quite interested. And funnily enough, she's just been over. She's just been training at Standard with Greg and like DeAndre and all them
Nice.
people. And she was sort of talking about it, and we were sort of talking about like the framework of training. And she was just saying, she was just like, they're just so on it all the time. And I was like, yeah, but you've got to think that a lot of the time, that's what we talk about, this idea of doing more. The best people can always handle more. And that might just be that their ability to, when we all wake up, when me and you wake up and we're having a shit day and we're like, fucking hell, it's boiling today. My neck's sore, my back's sore, kids have been up all night, you've got fucking sun cream in your eyes, like our ability to tolerate that, all that fucking noise, and whereas they can just go, don't matter, I'm doing this. They're just, even if it's just from that perspective, like there's so many frameworks when you look at individual components and it's different people. It's not always about some of them. Like I said, there are physical specimens. Some of them there are mental specimens, if you want to use that terminology.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
And there's so many, like you said, technical, tactical specimens. Like there's so many different ways that people can learn to solve this problem. And I think the difficulty is, and we've gone a bit off target here, but like what I'll bring the point back to strength conditioning, but fundamentally, everyone's going to have to solve that problem in a slightly different way that allows them to gain a competitive edge. And when I say competitive edge, I don't necessarily mean in competition. It might just be in the training room. It might just be in your everyday life, whatever it is. But for the majority of us who are in these sports, it's a hobby, it's a passion, it's a pastime. What we're essentially trying to do is lay a foundation. So we're trying to cover bases where we can, so that we can always guarantee that we are in a position to be able to handle a certain degree of workload that then allows us to then go, right, well, I know that that's covered, because that's the reality of training, isn't it? It's not sexy. It's not, it's every week when we show up, we're box ticking, for want of a better word. We're making sure we're eating enough food, we're lifting our weights, we're getting enough sleep. And then that gives us the platform that we can then go, class, I can go and do this. And realistically, that essentially is what we're doing. Yeah, there are obviously loads of little things along the way when it comes to we hit a PR in the gym, or I don't know, we go out for a meal with your partner or your kids, you go on holiday and all this different stuff. There's obviously the human experience doesn't change that. But the reality of it is just like repeatable behaviors that lay a foundational element for your body and your brain to be able to go, right, I can just kick on now.
I apologise if anyone can hear what sounds like my washing machine trying to take off. Yeah, I think some of the high level coaches put it best in terms of what you want to do with people is slow cook, because, and this is a difficult one, because I've never worked with anyone who's like an elite outlier athlete. I've worked with some people who've been close, but even they talk about their experiences and they're like, oh yeah, I was okay. So I've got a guy who played youth level for Wigan at like under 19s, so like touching point of being an elite athlete. But he was like, yeah, no, I did okay, but I was not like first choice or anything like that. And if we just looked at his numbers, absolute outlier. But that doesn't necessarily do enough. So when I look at what we do in terms of lifting, He's very explosive. He's very capable. Like on the field, he's unreal, but he breaks because he hasn't got the robustness. And that's someone who was like close to elite, did all the training, ate there, did everything right for years, and his outputs are just so much beyond what his body is capable of coping with. And it's interesting hearing very good coaches talk about that. And they're like, you can take someone who is elite and you can do stupid shit with them, and they will get strong and survive and continue, but they may not play at their absolute best. What you need is someone who knows when to push and when to slow cook and when to allow those things to kind of build and it's not sexy. That's the problem, is if you're trying to market, especially in this era of social media, it's, oh, this jump transfers to this, look at these numbers go up. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, and that is a good thing, but ultimately at what cost? Because sometimes your numbers go up, and then I had a few of the lads we did a train along at a local gym, and they came down. They had four of them decided they were testing trap bar deadlift, and subsequently we spent about 3 weeks recovering all of them because they all hit huge numbers. But they loved it, they enjoyed it, it was great fun. No one had any competitions coming up, so who cares? And they're all trying to compete with Big Steve, who can do that each week and be fine, because he's in his 20s and he's a competitor.
And this fundamentally comes back to the original stating point, is that like context matters so much. And it's funny you mentioned that, like about the recoverability. So I've got a mate, and he's like an ultra runner, and he did the winter spine race last year, which is like fucking ridiculous.
One
like
of my clients is looking at that one.
Yeah, like 260 odd miles. And he's a fucking fit lad, done Ironman, like raced loads of ultras, like 100 milers. And I seen him a couple of weeks ago, and we were just chatting about it, and he was like, it took me months to recover from it. Like, it took him months. Like, he was like, I was fucked. And then, but funnily enough, there's a guy on Instagram I follow. He's called like Andy Glaze or something like that. I can't remember. He's an American fella. And he's just done the summer one. It was like 2 weeks ago. And he was running a 100 miler. Like, he posted he'd just run another 100 miler 2 weeks later. And you're just like, how the fuck have you managed to, like, and this is where it gets a little bit misty, because you start talking, it starts to become like, was it talent? Is it genetics? Is it what is it? But what it is context. The context around that person matters so much. And I think this is where what gets lost in translation through social media, and what the importance of individualized programming and coaching is that context is based on you. This sounds like a sales pitch, but it's not meant to be. But like, I think that's one of the hardest things to sell in this modern world of fitness is the context is solely dependent on you. And it's made up of all these different lifestyle factors. If you, like you said, you've got, like you use Steve as an example, if you're 22 and you can recover within 2 nights and you can go and do that sort of stuff, amazing. But if you're 40 and you've got 2 kids and a full-time job or whatever, like, the context changes, and it's a completely different person operating in a completely different environment that impacts how they adapt. Like I had a question a client asked me the other day, and he was like, in 12 months, do you think I'm going to be able to hit this number? And I was like, well, I don't fucking know. I can't say that. I was like, based on what you're doing now, that's a very reasonable target, but I can't predict that. I don't know how your body's going to adapt. I can try and make estimations. That's what we're here to do. It's like we could program things in certain ways, so we're moving towards those numbers. Even if you were perfect, even if you never missed a session, you ate every meal absolutely perfectly, it was to whatever you've slept, the perfect night's sleep every night, like, still can't predict if it's going to happen or not. And I think that is the challenge.
Yeah. But I also think that's why. So one of the things to watch for is bad coaches will sell you a promise to a certain extent. They'll be like, oh, this program, we all do it to a certain extent. It's like, well, this program's worked for this many people. I know the process works, but I can't tell you, will you be one of the outliers, or will we have to shift you to something else because it's just not your bag? Like, that's why you need to have multiple different ways of coaching and programming and all of those things. Whereas bad coaches will just blame you if it doesn't work. It's like, oh, you didn't want it enough. You didn't take your recovery seriously, blah, blah, blah. And to a certain extent, yes, we all get people who can be like that.
And there will be an element of that. Do you know what I mean? Like you'll always get the results that you put the work in for. Do you know what I mean? If you're not sleeping, you're not eating, like, of course you're just not going to get the things that you want. Do you know what I mean? Like somebody who is willing to eat and not miss their sessions and sleep well and all that different stuff is more than likely going to get a better outcome than somebody who isn't. There's no denying that. There's no coaching strategy that's going to help intervene with that perspective. If you're just being fucking lazy and don't want to do anything, then do you know what I mean? Like the program can only work to some extent, but within that as well is
go on.
No, I was just going to say, like, but at the same time, there is no way of measuring it. Like you said, we can look at statistically, right? I've got 50 people that this has really worked for. Is it? But you never know, do you? Like, I always make obviously I run the weapon of mass destruction program, which is just like a general subscription program. And when I launched it, I was almost like, I actually don't know how this is going to go. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've no idea whether this is going to work or not. And then you start getting evidence and start people like, I even had a guy who ran it and he was like, oh, I'm getting really good results. And results were like ridiculous. Like the rate of strength he was gaining was insane. And he actually asked me about like one-to-one coaching and I turned him down. I was like, mate, you don't need it. I was like, there's nothing that I'm going to tell you for an extra however many quid a month that's going to get you any better results than you're getting right now. I was like, but that's just based off like you said, it's anecdotal evidence of like, right, I had 50 grapplers in this program. Of that 50, 45 have had really, really positive results, right? The 5 haven't. Was that a me problem? Was that a commitment problem? Was that just a life problem? I don't know, family or whatever. And then you can start to go, right, well, at least I can sort of say, well, I know this is going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the other reason that it's difficult, and it leans into the same thing that I often make fun of, but we're obsessed with metrics and data. And the difficulty is that sometimes the metrics and data tell you more about the person measuring than they do about the thing that's being measured. And we all have to play this game to a certain extent. We have to have some baseline measures, whether it's bar weight or number of reps or, jump height or whatever, just so we can see, have you improved from where you were? But that's the only bit that really sort of matters, because we can't, it's like the guys who obsess over jump height in jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, when the fuck are we ever moving so quickly that this would have any transfer? The sport is just too slow.
Yeah.
Now, maybe at the elite level, you could argue, oh, better footwork or whatever. I'd still say that's largely technical, tactical, and application. I'm unconvinced that there's this direct line between plyos, if we want to call them plyos when they're not strictly plyos, and doing it. Now, do I want more people jumping? Yeah, great. There's loads of benefits to jumping in terms of robustness and resilience and things that we definitely know will give you returns on your investment. But it's the transfer trap is the bit that irritates me when people say, like, oh, this will, it's like for MMA, this will improve your punching power. Will it? You don't fucking know. Maybe their coach has just got really good at doing it. Maybe they should just hit the heavy bag more. Maybe you should stay in your fucking lane and stop pretending that you understand how to transfer force to a punch, especially if you've never thrown one. Like, I find that one blows my mind when coaches are like, yeah, this transfers to this because these papers said, and you're like, I get that, but you also need to go and apply it and see. You cannot simply trust that investigation on 16 guys who've never thrown a punch before actually, again, why context matters. And it just becomes it's a bit difficult to sell all of this because it's not sexy and it's not exciting. And until you've done it. Yeah.
Sorry, I was on my phone and I was looking for this. I seen a quote the other day on Instagram and I thought you'd absolutely love it. And I took a picture of it and it sort of pertains to this. And it's, we have surrendered ourselves to the tyranny of measurement and forgotten what it means to live. Yeah. I was like, that's fucking sensational. Yeah, I was like, I've got a screenshot of that.
Fucking 100%. No, but I completely agree with you. And people look at me like I'm weird when I say stuff like this, because I appreciate it does sound a bit woo-woo, but the same thing's happening, just to get on my high horse about education, the same thing's happening in the UK in education. The data is in. Educational tech is shite. It makes you dumb. It makes kids stupider. They can't read well. They can't write well. They can't think for themselves. Critical thinking's in the toilet. Like, it's not a good thing. It doesn't even lead to particularly improved exam results. And yet, for some reason, the rest of Europe is going, maybe we should back out of this and go back to textbooks and, how we've taught for hundreds of years. And there's an argument that some of that is the bias of that's what people have always done. So they've got more practice with it. They just need to get better at the tech. But equally, maybe just fuck off and let humans be humans. Maybe this whole great tech adventure is actually not that good for us. Maybe, especially if it creates this fragile mentality. I mean, you see the guys who are so heavily involved in it, all the like bro influencers, like Stephen Bartlett going, I had 3 glasses of wine and it ruined 4 days of my life. Like, fucking hell, mate, you never played rugby, have you? Like,
oh mate, I went to the pub on Tuesday, and I reckon there's about 500 people that would disagree with that. Do you know what I mean? Like 500 people went to watch England on Tuesday. It probably had about minimum 5 pints.
It was England that ruined their day for 3 days. It was not the fucking pints. But this is, it's this like fragile mentality.
Not saying you should go out and do 5 pints on Tuesday, by the way.
Do what you want. Maybe you're an outlier. Who knows? But I think it's easy to become obsessed with those metrics and those measures in a way that doesn't actually reflect anything. Like, oh, my resting heart rate went down. Okay, that's probably a good thing, but it could also be the sign that something is wrong and you have a genuine heart condition, and maybe there's like, it doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means, and we need to be more careful about that. And just, like, fuck off Whoop, fuck off Aura, I'm fine, I'll train, it'll be okay. Like, I don't know if you saw Will Whalen's post yesterday where he was like, I don't know what a wet bell, was it wet bulb? That was it. I don't know what a wet bulb is, because he was talking about the like measure of heat. I had to Google it. But I don't know what a wet bulb is. I've had less than 5 hours sleep. Caffeine equals energy, and I have to do deadlifts and squats because my program says so. And he went and did it, and fuck me, like drenched at the end of it. And there's a time and a place for just being a bit dumb and a bit hard-headed. You have to learn to temper it, because otherwise you risk overuse injuries and not being able to recover from it. But backing yourself is just as important as anything else. And it's why if we take the sales out of it, if you are looking for a strength and conditioning coach, as long as they are not shite, as long as you can see that they use a variety of different methods, that they're open to trying different things, it's going to be about their personality, because whoever you are happy to work with for the longest, that is the person that is going to get you the results that you are looking for. Because if you're bashing your head against the wall with some absolute cretin who's like, oh, talk to me on Monday on your check-in, and you try and message them and say like, oh, I'm struggling, and they just go, talk to me on Monday on your check-in, that's not going to work for you. If you're so organized that you don't need any support whatsoever until the Monday, that person might be absolutely perfect for you. And it's very difficult to sell in that way, and it's much more popular to talk in sports science-y terms and sound more authoritative than you actually are. Like, if you do, for me, my bugbear, and I've done a lot of stuff around conditioning with grappling, but my bugbear around that is like, oh, if you do this, then you'll get better at this. And like, not necessarily. There are people who improve their VO2 max. There are elite runners who've done that and they've got worse. Because those VO2 max isn't actually that easily measurable.
No.
And neither are heart rate zones, and neither is, like, actually most of the best runners in the world run off RPE, because your body is already giving you all that information if you just listen.
Time.
Yeah.
Just pacing.
Yeah. RPE, pace. Yeah.
It was one of the biggest things, one of the biggest learning lessons. I remember reading, it's a really good book. You might have read it, but it's called the Triathlete Training Bible, I think. And I read quite a lot about triathletes because it was endurance sports, quite an interest of mine. But that was one of the biggest learning lessons when I actually spoke to endurance athletes, and I was like, everything's just done off pacing, like you said, and perceived exertion.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, I've got to go and run a 5-minute mile, whatever. Obviously, we're talking like good endurance athletes, but like, or it's got to be like everything's based on how much you breathe in, or like whatever it is, like, and you wear a heart rate monitor because it can help you track training load.
Yeah.
Certain times, obviously, you can use it.
How many Olympians do you see looking at the fucking Apple Watch?
Yeah.
Because you would just drive yourself insane trying to train or compete that way.
Yeah.
So I interestingly, like, my dad was quite a high level endurance athlete. He competed in a race from Belfast to Dublin and won it. And it's fucking mental. Won it by a couple of hours as well. So the camera crew woke him up after he'd gone to bed from winning and asked him if he could run down the cobbled road again at the end. And he was like, oh, fuck, okay, yeah. No, I don't want to, but yeah. And the first year he tried it, he had to pull out after, I think, like 6 hours or something, because he just paced himself wrong. He's like, he got that far in and was like, I'm fucked. I can't finish this race. And he just knew from feel. He was like, I started too quick. That was stupid. I need to go back and rethink and do all of that. And that's,
Yeah.
but it's just off feel. How did Roger Bannister break the 4 minute mile without an Apple Watch? Quite easily, actually, because I think it's probably holding you back more than it is providing you with useful information.
Yeah.
Like,
and it is difficult because obviously, like you said, like there are certain things, and again, but it comes down to, like, I guess, personality types. Like you are going to get some people who naturally will always just go, can I make this a little bit harder? Can I make this a little bit harder?
Yeah.
And what you need with them people is something that goes, right, let's just fucking chill out a little bit here.
I'd say especially elite athletes there. Like, the reason so many of them wear the Oura ring and wear the other stuff is because arguably, I mean, one, money, but two, it allows you to say to the sport coach or whatever, like, no, they're not bullshitting you. Like, they are actually tired. They are actually fatigued. They really do need a day off. Or even justify to the athlete themselves, because they're like, no, I need to train more. And it's like, no, look at the metrics. You really do need to.
But then on the other hand, you've got the people who, like you said, use it as a crux, where it's like, my heart rate's up 2 beats a minute. I can't go and lift, or I can't do whatever. And obviously the people like
the same like people who drink electrolyte drinks because they can't just admit to themselves that they like squash.
So it's like, but and the answer with most things technologically based is usually in the middle, and it's the people who can look at that data and go, yeah, fuck off, I'm not listening to you, I feel good, I'm going. Or the ones that are going, yeah, maybe I need to just chill out a little bit here, and that it was something that I couldn't do. I really struggled with it. I got like health anxiety and all that sort of shit, and it was something that really, really impacted my performance. And taking that stuff away is really, really good for me. It's something that just doesn't sit well with me at all. But some people might be very like data analytically based.
So I've got one. I'm not wearing it now, but I've got it for the thing I have found useful for them is it keeps me honest about sleep. It can't track sleep, and like anyone who claims, like, oh, it told me I didn't have enough REM sleep. I was awake for 4 hours one night, having a long dark night of the soul where I panicked about everything I've ever done. Couldn't sleep. And it was like, oh, those 4 hours were good REM sleep. I was like, those 4 hours were me having a fucking mild panic attack lying in my bed. Like, I've had ones where I've got up and put my kids back to bed, and it's like, you slept during this. I'm like, I did not. I was in that room singing them to sleep. This is not. But for how long did you spend in bed, it's very helpful. And it makes you confront it and go, fuck it, yeah, I probably should go to bed earlier.
Mine used to send me a notification saying, you need to go to bed. And I was like, I'm in work. Like, what do you want me to do? Like 8:30 at night, your sleep debt's too big. I was like, I'm in fucking work. Piss off.
That's amazing. Yeah, but I think, to bring it back to what we're supposed to be talking about, but
yeah, sorry.
I think but I think that's part of the problem, is that all of these tools are treated as if they are completely accurate. And in the same way that some coaches will talk about things as if they're completely accurate. And when you dig into it, it's all context dependent. Wearables are really useful for some people. Wearables are really unhelpful for others. Personally, I err on the side of, you don't fucking need it. Back yourself, trust yourself, listen to how your body feels, because that's going to provide you more long-term utility than becoming reliant on a piece of tech designed by some people who've never fucking done any exercise in their lives.
Yeah.
It's you have to consider where you do want to use it and where you don't want to use it. And it's the same thing with when coaches talk about coaching. You know, if all you've ever been around is incredibly driven athletes and Olympians and people who want to succeed and are already often doing most of the basics, if not all of them, there'll be low-hanging fruit for everyone. But it then becomes very difficult to speak to people who aren't either coaches or high-level athletes, because you're going to miss all of the people in between who they don't think that way. Like, you're in an outliers group and you're talking as if everyone talks like an outlier.
think that's again a really, really important, and again it comes back to that general term of like context mattering so much. It's like I reckon we could make a broad statement here that I reckon 99% of the advancements in strength conditioning, you might counter this, but like 99% of the advancements in strength conditioning in the modern world are technologically based. They are ways of measuring training. So whether it's velocity based, whether it's, like you said, recovery based, HRV, resting heart rate, all that different stuff, all of it is about management of athletes. Now, where does the context of that matter? Well, most of those developments are coming from environments where the athlete's value to an organization is hundreds of millions of pounds. So if you've got a footballer, like let's say you've got Erling Haaland as an example, the value of Erling Haaland playing football for Manchester City is millions, millions and millions and millions in potential trophy winnings, in shirt sales, in all this different stuff.
Yeah, he has to play.
So he has to play. So the context of that technology when it comes to managing auto-regulation when he's in the gym, in terms of does his bar speed drop, how recovered is he, how his readiness is, it's imperative, because him playing and not playing could cost that club millions. If it's Barry the Blue Belt on a Tuesday afternoon, does the context of that matter?
You'll
be
fine,
much?
Barry. Just get on with
it.
it.
Yeah, you will be fine, Barry. Like,
but just to give another confounding factor for that is like the other issue that you have with all of this tech stuff is ultimately all of these companies exist to sell product. Therefore, all the stuff that they say is marketing. So the problem that you have is people go, oh, yeah, well, there's this study that shows this about the Oura ring. Like, yeah, of course, because Oura paid for the fucking study, because that's marketing. Yeah. It's not actually, this is the problem, is we've allowed, because there's basically no money in sports science research, not by comparison to pharmaceuticals or whatever.
Yeah.
We haven't moderated it in the way that it's supposed to be. So there are wonderful researchers out there doing fantastic work, but the stuff that becomes popular or the stuff that becomes well known or the stuff that's well designed and things like that is often bankrolled by the very people who want a certain result from the study. And that's how you leverage pressure on people to either publish or not publish. And so as a result, the other problem that we have is all these things that we're talking about of like bar speed, velocity, all of those things, a very good coach in person will notice those things. They're like, that doesn't look right. Now, they won't be able to necessarily say, oh, the bar speed dropped, but they'll be like, this doesn't look right, I'm calling it. And that's what people will refer to as a coaching eye. And the issue that you have in, especially in high level sports, is because there's so much money in there, every time a coach leaves, most of the coaching staff either end up going with them or being removed by whoever comes in. So as a result, unless you have someone that you trust that you take with you everywhere, it's much easier to get a load of sports science graduates and put them behind pieces of tech that allegedly do the same job. But the other interesting thing is that as this tech has become more and more involved in sport, injury rates haven't drastically reduced. In some sports, they're the highest. Yeah, in some sports, they're the highest they've ever been. And actually taking the human out of the experienced coach out of the equation is making things worse, because, you know, oh, by this metric, it says he's fine. Well, great. The metric isn't the fucking measure, mate. Like, it's a representative, it's a single data point that represents an entire human being. If they've got a coach they trust and they come in and they're like, yeah, just everything feels like shit at the moment, I'm really struggling to recover. And in a high level sporting environment, being open and honest enough to be vulnerable in that situation is really hard. Yeah. So that's why a very good coach makes a huge difference, but it's not sellable. Whereas tech is sellable. Single data entry points are very sellable.
Yeah.
And it means that we expect those things. Oh, it's what the pros are doing. It's like, yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean that's the right thing. Like, unfortunately, there's a bit more to it. Do you get on with your coach? Do they have a track record of programming for other people? Do they lift themselves? Do they ask you about your sport? Do they ask, how did you feel on the mats? Like, I genuinely think, how are you feeling in jiu-jitsu is a far more important point than how is your lifting feeling.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Like, this side of things. And again, this is the complexity of what we do from a job perspective. But as a whole, as an individual who's trying to make decisions about their own training. And it's like sometimes you just need a voice of reason. Like and I had a conversation. Not he's not a client, but like I had a conversation with a mate the other day, and he's like really strong. He's a physio as well, so he's clued up, and he tweaks his knee a little bit, and he was like, I just need a bit of fucking talking to. And he was like, I've picked this injury up, and I'm like in my head about how I'm not doing certain stuff. I'm looking at like stupid exercises on the internet, and I was like, mate, let's take rugby. It's like rugby players are some of the most robust people on this earth. Like I mean, obviously I can only speak for league really, but like you'll have players on a league pitch that make 50 tackles a game. That's 50 car crashes a game, multiple games a year, once a week, every week. And I was like, they're some of the most robust athletes on earth. And they're also the most injured athletes on earth.
Yeah, because you go, oh, how are you feeling? And they're like, oh, I feel like shit.
I feel like shit, yeah. And it's like, sometimes you just have to zoom out, especially with jiu-jitsu. And I think so many people are guilty with this in jiu-jitsu is you zoom out and you go, what is it are you trying to do? It is, like you said, it's complex, it's chaotic. The sport itself is designed to break bodies and manipulate joints and put stress through systems. Like sometimes you have to zoom out and go, right, what is it I'm trying to do? Yes, okay, of course it's frustrating to be injured. No one likes being injured. Yes, we can make better decisions. Was it a decision-making thing? Was it like where are you like going wrong? But like sometimes you have to go, right, bigger picture, what is it I'm trying to do? Right, okay, let's just calm down a little bit here and accept that this is quite a normal thing to happen.
But that's also where the importance of the coach comes in, because especially it's one of the advantages of having a coach who actually does the same thing that you do, because they'll be able to say to you, like, yeah, that's normal. That will happen. Or actually, no, let's have a chat with a physio because maybe this isn't the right thing. Or, you know, you can just back it off a little bit. That's absolutely fine. Like I've had people who've worked with me before because they just needed someone to tell them to back things off because
Yeah,
they couldn't do it for themselves. I'm kind of similar. Like if I was left to my own devices, I will fuck up my training regularly.
yeah,
Whereas I have a coach who's like, don't be stupid, don't do that. I'd probably be much better now than I would have been, but I was one of those people who was like, I can do more, I can work harder, I can, because that's all I
yeah,
had. Like I didn't have any athletic ability other than a low resting heart rate, and I inherited that. I didn't work for it. So
yeah,
I think it's interesting. You have to take the context of who is talking into account, because you will see a lot of stuff online about everyone should sprint, right? And yes, that is true. But who are they marketing to? Do they do a grappling sport? Because grapplers do not generally sprint very well
yeah.
on their feet because they don't have strong like ankles,
I
and
mean, and it
they're
also
not
doesn't help.
outside. They're not
It
running.
doesn't. It doesn't help that most of them are some of the least athletic people you've ever seen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
They've found
also,
a niche. They've found a niche for the nerdy. Again, I don't
yeah,
like using this term, but like autistic, like person that was shit at normal sports. The capability, like it's yeah,
yeah, and it's the things that benefit you in this sport are being strong, having isometric strength that is able to squash other people, or they give you their limb and you're like, this is mine now, and a gas tank. And that's
yeah,
basically, in terms of physiological characteristics, that's basically it. Strength can also help because it makes you difficult to knock over. And if you have those things in place, then everything else becomes a little bit easier to do.
I think Dave might have been kicked out of the podcast. Apologies to anyone listening. We'll try and sort this. I'll try and carry on where Dave left off, so you can join back in. But yeah, so I think the real key important takeaway when it comes to the strength conditioning side of things is something that I remember having oh, he's back. One of the things that I always remember having a conversation with a client with, you'll be back.
I am.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was trying to.
My internet died. I don't know what happened there. It just.
I was trying to
continue
on without. I was trying to continue on without you, but obviously. But yeah, and I think I always, again, I keep saying I keep having conversations with clients, but obviously they're really good learning experiences. But I remember having a conversation with a client once, and he was like, "I want to be that person that feels really strong when they roll with them," and I was like, I mean, yeah, absolutely. But one of the things you've got to consider is that's a perceptive feeling from another person. So, you know, when you roll with somebody and you're like, fucking hell, they feel strong. It's a perceptive sensation that there's no number in the world that we can't quantify that. How do we quantify if someone feels, someone feels when they get hold of us?
But you also don't know. So I had that. I rolled with Jordan Webster probably about a year ago. And at the end of the roll, I was like, fuck, that was unpleasant because he's so strong, so difficult to pin to the floor, so difficult to do anything to. And I was like, fuck, that's not great. And he was like, that was fucking horrible. I felt like I was seconds away from dying. And I'm like, oh, cool, because that's how I felt. Like, and I think that's especially you get guys say the same thing around competition. And again, that's the thing that someone who doesn't train in jiu-jitsu won't understand. If you come to them and go, oh, I feel weak, they'll be like, oh, well, let's look at your numbers. Oh, we'll push this up. We'll do this. We'll do that. And you may still feel exactly the same way in 6 months' time, because actually what you're misunderstanding there is other people's perceptual feelings and whether they say it to you or not. Like most of the time, if you feel like an absolute freak on the mats, you're generally rolling with people that aren't good enough. Like if you're in a room of people who are challenging you and pushing you and will take advantage of your technical mistakes and your tactical decision making and all that kind of stuff, you will feel like trash. And you may have had a really good round and you might feel weak against someone who's smaller than you. And that's simply because they're just more technically capable.
Yeah. And this is the difficulty in it, is like, and I think it's important to recognize that when it comes to this, back to this general topic of like understanding the value of strength conditioning, is strength conditioning is just laying a physical platform. It's putting you in a position that allows your body to then go on and do the things, whether that's from a strength standpoint, whether that's from a speed standpoint, whether that's just from a movement capability standpoint, in terms of you're adding more movement variability in, so you are a better mover, so your body has more physical affordance to do those things.
Not to mention that your range of motion in most things, as long as your coach is able to program well, you are stretching. You're doing loaded stretches every time you do a decent lift. So that will also improve not just your movement variance, but it also allows you access to ranges of motion that maybe you didn't have access to do before, and strength through ranges of motions where maybe you would have been weak before, which is really helpful in terms of certain aspects of the sport. Like I think there's this assumption that it's like we said, it's marketing. Everything sounds straightforward. Like there was a really nice point a little while ago by Barry Robinson, who's a striking coach, who was basically, he made a point that I think a lot of strength and conditioning coaches who responded to it completely misunderstood. He was saying that the problem we have with strength and conditioning in combat sports is everything everyone talks about is in terms of offense. So it's, this will make you punch harder. This will improve your gas tank so that you can throw more strikes. You can, and some of that is that it's very American and it's appealing to the athletes, and to a certain extent, the coach is trying to get on side, and it's more sexy to say like, oh, this will make you better at your output. But actually, his point was, well, what about improving the gas tank so that you can disengage and re-engage more? What about so you can defend more? What about so you can cover up more? What about, and I think that's quite an important point for jiu-jitsu as well, it's not as sexy, but what if you improve your gas tank so that you don't make shitty decisions because you're not blowing out of your ass? Or
Yeah. It's
what
harder
if
for someone to
you
hold you down.
exactly, yeah, what if you're a bit stronger and you're like, hang on, I could just stand up, and suddenly you can disengage and re-engage in a way that you may not have physically felt was possible before because you're a bit stronger or a bit more robust. Now,
Yeah,
some of
yeah.
that's also coaching and the sort of technical tactical variances and how your coach encourages you to do those things. But I think it's very easy for people to try and tie it to certain aspects of things. So either like you are strong or you are, you're strong enough to do an armbar or you're strong enough to break through this, rather than it being like, oh, you're strong enough actually that you can, I don't know, switch between passing styles, or you're
Yeah,
strong
yeah.
enough to get your leg back in when you're trying to retain guard. That's not as sexy, but it's just as important.
Yeah,
And that will be something that people who aren't necessarily involved in the sport might miss because it doesn't
yeah.
sound cool.
Yeah. It's difficult, isn't it? And it quite often the case, and again, I think fucking social media and business mentors have got a lot to answer for personally. But that is the issue, in it? Is like more often than not, the value in the things that we do and the things it comes in the things that aren't being sold to you. And that's the
Yeah.
hardest thing to get your head around. Like
Yeah.
it's and that yeah, it's tough. It's like nutrition's a good example. Nutrition, where whatever spectrum is, it's very easy to go start here, look at this person with a six pack 10 weeks later. But what's the real value? Well, it's energy management, it's fueling, it's recovery, it's all this different stuff that goes with it, which is very much,
Relationship with
again,
food.
relationship with food. Yeah, like relationship with your body, like all that different stuff like that. And that's the stuff that is arguably significantly more important than, oh, you've got abs or not. But it's the stuff that, and nutrition's a bit better at it because it's very easy for nutrition to go, here's the start point, here's the end point. Well done.
I also think in our space, a lot of nutritionists are much better at this because they use the example of, maybe you're in a weight category you don't want to be in.
Yeah.
And for some people it is, you come to jiu-jitsu and you're like, fuck, I'm an ultra heavyweight. I don't want to be an ultra, like, this is shit.
Yeah.
These guys are, and for some people, that's the thing that they need to help them lose a bit of weight and be more confident on the mats and all of those nice things. It's easier to market that as, graph go down.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. Whereas I really dislike when the marketing around, like, here's the 12-week challenge, here's where they look there, and here's where they look now.
Yeah,
Who
I
gives
agree.
a shit? 12 weeks is it's enough to show what your training is about.
Yeah.
What, 12 weeks of misery? Show me what that person looks like in 6 months, because if they still look like that, then maybe something has worked there. But if they're back again and you're running the same 12-week, like, it's not working.
Yeah.
Which I think is why people have become more interested in strength and conditioning as a concept. And, like, I've definitely seen the rise of people referring to themselves as strength and conditioning coaches who haven't done a CSCS or a level 4 or a degree or, whatever we want to go for. Because it sounds, my favorite's when they say strength coach, because you're like, well, that's not a technical term for anything. So yeah, anyone can call themselves that.
Yeah.
Because people have had enough of that sort of bodybuilding light style, I'm going to do this training so that I look this way for a photo shoot and then never be able to replicate it again. Whereas when you are chasing numbers in the gym or how you feel on the mats or whatever, yes, it's more ethereal. Yes, it's much harder to sell. Like those systems where people go, here's the before picture, here's the after picture. They sell like fucking hotcakes because that appeals to our brains as a human.
Yeah.
Whereas, you kind of, there has to be a bit more storytelling. There has to be a bit more to the you're usually buying from the coach rather than necessarily the system that they use to a certain extent.
It is challenging.
Yeah. But the things so we haven't really covered, we've talked a lot about why it's difficult to sell, which at the risk of sounding like we're whinging, we're not. It's just,
we're not whinging.
You just need to be cautious about who you are listening to, because if they sound really, really sure of themselves and they never say, oh, I'm not sure, or I've got to have a look at that, or this evidence suggests, or whatever, then they probably don't know, because realistically, it's why coaches go with the classic "it depends," because it is
Yeah,
all
yeah,
about your context as an individual and seeing whether you respond to the classic measures or whether you don't. Because some people don't. In all S&C research, it's very small groups that they use, but they're always like, on average, this improved this much. What that actually means when you dig into the data sometimes is that 2 or 3 people massively responded, a few people had a bit of a response, and then some poor fucker got nothing. And there will be times when you are the person who got nothing, and the job of a good coach is to figure out, well, why? Is there a missing piece in terms of nutrition? Is it sleep? Is it just your body just doesn't get on with that style of training? We try something different and it flies. Like, I have a client who, she has long COVID. And before she had long COVID, classic heavy lifts suited her really well with a little bit of bodybuilding on the side. She loved it. She enjoyed it. She got a lot out of it. And as she's had to learn how to manage her long COVID and the kind of residual effect of that, we've moved to like a 1x20 style of training. And I've used that with other people and never had any success whatsoever.
yeah. I
There are
was going to say I'm not a huge fan of it,
yeah,
but
but for her, fucking perfect. We
yeah,
do
yeah,
one hard set, and she hits a load of different movement patterns, and off we go. Will we run it forever? Probably not, because I think it's probably going to build a base for her that maybe the physical overreaction of long COVID kind of took away from her. But that's the point, is that coaches need to be craftspeople. They need to recognize there are different tools to be used in different situations. But then, ironically, you also have to be careful of the person who says, oh, there's a time and a place for everything. Because there are certain things where there isn't a fucking time or place for.
yeah,
Like you could, depressingly, you could make that same argument about, oh, well, there's a time and place for Jimmy Savile. There isn't.
yeah,
There's a time and place for Michael Jackson. There isn't, though. Not
yeah,
now.
yeah.
And I think it was Dustin LaBelle put this up the other day. He said, because there's a time and a place for everything, I'm going to teach my 2 kids how to smoke.
Yeah.
And I think that's the frustrating thing for coaches, is that what we do is a craft, and that means
Yeah.
it's not necessarily very scalable, because there's only so many people you can coach to the standard that you would like to coach to without spreading yourself too thin and dropping the ball somewhere. And it's hard to sell a craft. It's why, like, craft people have become popular online, because they just show themselves doing the thing. Like, you see stonemasons and woodworkers and people like that becoming more popular because they're showing, like, this is what I do, and people like that. Strength and conditioning, it's not, you can't see someone whittle something down in a 50-minute session or whatever. It doesn't really like appeal in that way, because it's an even slower process.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, they don't know what's to watch 6 hours of me just staring at my laptop like that. Scratching my head.
Yeah, or coaching or reading or whatever it is that allows you to do it. In the same way that I think it's similar with investments. People want the short, oh yeah, I invested in this one stock and I got super rich. That would be amazing. They don't want to see so for 40 years, this person just did sensible little purchases. And now they're fucking loaded, or they don't have to worry about their pension or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And to kind of bring it back a little bit as well to talking about strength and conditioning, we are in an environment, because we have to sell through social media, and social media is all about attention grabbing. So as a result, we all have to find our ways to grab attention. Like, for me, making fun of silly videos that I find on the internet, that seems to be working as a little bit of a niche for me to then set up a thing I actually want to talk about. But for other people, it's, sometimes it will be that the person just says outrageous shit. It might be that the person does outrageous things because they're physically capable of doing that. And that's fine, but it doesn't necessarily reflect on whether they're a good coach or not. There are people out there with huge followings, and you see what they put out and you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? That is a terrible program. Why is no one able to call this out a little bit more effectively? And then there are some of the best coaches in the world have no following whatsoever because they're too busy doing their day job for a living.
It's funny. I reread. What's he called? What is it? Dr. Pat. What's he called?
Pat Davidson.
Pat Davidson. I was reading.
Don't confuse Dr. Pat with Miss Pat. Two very different people.
I seen a clip from the Coach 'Em Up podcast, and they were talking about his mass program. And I was like, fuck, I've not read that for a while. So I was like, I'm just online, just like scrolling through it. And I don't think in the past I'd ever read like the breakdown of this program. And it was it was literally just like, I am trying to kill you. He's like, I'm literally trying to kill you. And it was like, I thought, because obviously he's an exceptional coach, very well educated, PhD, all this different stuff, wide range of experience. But I always thought it made me laugh because similar lines to that context is like people will just buy that program and just be like, hang on, why did I get injured? And it's like, if you actually read it, it's literally him just being like, I am trying to make you worse at things to make you better at them. Like, it's literally just, and I think that's a direct sort of, I think that's the big thing with the social media things in it. It's like, usually it's the olden days used to be the small print, didn't it?
Yeah. But also, like the olden days, people used to you'd message that coach, you'd email them, you'd ask them questions, you'd dig into what they're doing and why they're doing it. And now people don't want to have a conversation; they just want to just have it beamed straight into their brains. And the problem with that is then you miss the context. You know, people. I remember when was it the Bulgarian method got really popular of like squat every day.
Yeah. And like Smolov and stuff like that.
Yeah. And when that guy was interviewed, the coach who ran it, he was like, I had like 6 big, angry Olympic weightlifters on steroids I'd not even heard of before. And they were in a little village and I didn't trust them to not get in trouble. So I needed to make them too fucking tired to do anything stupid in the run up to the Olympics.
And not to mention the 100 lifters before that are all so broken that they couldn't complete it.
The old Chinese weightlifting method of just built on the broken backs of all the people who couldn't survive the training. And that's the difficulty there is, and I think maybe we should probably bring it back around and kind of pull things together a little bit. But it just means that if you are working with someone and it isn't working, then don't be afraid to ask them questions about it. If your coach is not comfortable discussing your program and their decision making, you shouldn't be working with them. If they're not, go on.
No, sorry, Dave. I just had a thought. You keep going.
If they're not willing to discuss it with you, then walk away. If you're just not enjoying it, if you just don't click with them, that's also okay as well. Like you are ultimately the consumer, and you're going to get more out of having a working relationship with a coach that you get on with than you are out of having a working relationship with a coach who you don't get on with at all. Because fundamentally, what we're all selling is variations on the same theme. The only things that I would say are super high volume programs are fucking stupid for jiu-jitsu because you will get worse on the mats. You will feel worse. You will train less. Your quality of mat time will be worse. So unless you're desperate to like gain the benefits of that kind of high volume training for a period of time, it's probably not worth the squeeze realistically, unless you're happy to sacrifice mat time to get a bit bigger, in which case, yeah, go for it. Someone out there posted a bit of their snapshot of their own training and it had 40 working sets in the session. And you're just like, on what planet is that a sensible program for jiu-jitsu? Like, fine if you want to do it for yourself, but I hope you're not programming that for anyone because that's fucking stupid. Because there's just no need. Like, you can do so much. I like Dustin LaBelle's point of make the whole thing so easy and so repeatable that we know what your absolute baseline is. So we've always got something to come back to if anything ever goes wrong. And I think that's a nice way. You've talked about it before. Stacking 7 out of 10 weeks is going to do more for you than 10 out of 10 weeks or 4 out of 10 weeks. Like that middle zone that's a bit boring will do more for you. I had a client where with RDLs, we've just been doing 3 sets of 6 with about 120 kilos. And we've run that for about 6 to 8 weeks. Some days he puts on 122 and a half. Some days he puts on 120. And then we did a little bit of testing where we went for sets of 3 and he was happily playing with 173 kilos. And he's not touched, that's 50 kilos heavier than anything that he's touched for ages. And that's not sexy or exciting or marketable or whatever. But that's the point, is that you just have to find what suits that person at that point in time and accept that it will work for a period of time and then it might not. Like Dan John's whole thing of everything works for about 6 weeks.
Yeah,
the skill of the coach is in stringing those 6-week blocks together over a long
yeah.
period of time.
And more often than not, it's just, you just got to persevere with
it. Yeah, keep showing up.
Yeah, just keep doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I think I've been guilty of this in the past. Is like, again, to come back to like this, the general justifying your value as a coach is like, I've been guilty of in the past where you're like, fucking hell, I need to change something. Nothing's happened. And deep down, I know that like the answer is just, no, just keep doing it. And that's funny. Like, it's, I mean, this might be a helpful thing for some people, but it might not. Like, my job is a strength and conditioning coach. I've done these same workouts, same exercises, same-ish sets and reps now for about 12 months. Not changed that much. Granted, I'm not training on the mats, which is not a conversation for this session, but like, I ain't changed anything. And everything is still, for the most part, on the up. And I always think that's it. But that's also a hard thing for a strength and conditioning coach perspective, because you're like, well, what do you need me for then? And that's the nuance of coaching, is what I should say, is being able to make those decisions, like you said, about like having a toolkit, being able to make a decision. Is this a programming problem? Is this a person problem? Is this a external problem? Food, recovery, blah, 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 blah. And how can we then make a decision based on that and ensure them to progress? It might be, no, you're fine. You just need to keep going a little bit more. Might be that you need to push a little bit more. Like, I like using, obviously, presumably for you, for the most part, it's like perceptive-based programming, so RPE, reps and reserve, that sort of stuff. I really like using, like, if I know a client, if I'm looking at a program going like, right, load hasn't changed, but I know that they can do more.
Yeah.
I'll just like stick an AMRAP in and I'll go, right, final session of the block, you're going to AMRAP it. And when it's like double the amount of reps, I'm like, well, obviously that's not an RPE7 then, is it? Because we just done 14 reps when you said 5 was an RPE7. So in theory, the most you should have been able to do is 8, if it's or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just being able to employ them tools. And I think that, because obviously we need to come to a close, but like, to bring the question is like, what's the value of strength conditioning? Well, strength conditioning is a vessel that allows you to develop not only a very confident, capable, physically able body, but it's a vessel for improvement in other areas as well. Your ability to make decisions, your ability to develop training maturity. That's something that I talk to clients all about all the time. Like, sometimes it's not about physical robustness, it's about mental robustness in terms of your ability to navigate the gym, to be able to make training decisions, to be able to look at it and go, I am feeling a bit shit today, I'm going to pull out. I am feeling great, I'm going to send it.
Things
like,
feel good, actually, I can.
Yeah. Like, it's being able to make decisions in terms of like, if things are going badly, what is it? Have I eaten enough? Have I slept enough? Well, it's 30 fucking degrees, so maybe I'm just a bit fatigued, a bit run down. Whatever it is, or maybe it is a case of like, nah, everything's been going class. Let's have it. Do you know what I mean? And it is a fantastic vessel of like development. And it sounds a bit cliche and a bit cringy, but outside of all these nuanced factors in terms of your resting heart rate, your loading schemes, your velocity, your jump distance, all this different stuff, it is a thing that, to go back to the original point that we made, is like, it allows you to do more, to be more of a person, whether it's you're adding physical tissue, whether it's you're adding tensile structural robustness, or whatever fucking black jargon term you want to use. But it might just be your mental capability to be able to go, no, I can do another 2 sessions. I can add 2 sessions a week to my time. I'm not that busy. I'll just watch Netflix a little bit less at night, or I don't know, get up half an hour earlier, or whatever it is. Like, and it, for the majority of people, I think that's which is such an important tool, is just the capability to go, I can do a bit more.
Yeah, I can help move that sofa. I can, there's so many secondary and tertiary benefits that people don't even pay attention to. Yes, of course, metrics are useful. And, someone who doesn't use any whatsoever, I'd probably be concerned about that as well. If you keep getting weaker and weaker and your coach's like, nah, it's all right, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to reconsider, but it's beware the person who doesn't treat you as a whole human being. Because unless, and even at the elite level, many of the best strength and conditioning coaches do very well because they actually chat to their athletes. Like, they have a working relationship with them. They find out stuff other coaches don't know because they ask and they care. And because that physiological state is so, it's not separate from your brain. It's not separate from how your week has been. It's not separate from the argument that you had with someone. Like, all of that is one thing. And it's why focusing on single metrics or focusing on single aspects of it, they're just proxies for that. Oh, your jump height's gone down. Yeah, that's just a proxy for your readiness. And actually, that should spark then a conversation. It's like, did you sleep enough? Have you had enough to drink? Is it hot? Are you all right? Is everything going on okay at home? And that then allows you to kind of run through all of those. It's why everyone uses an athlete questionnaire, but most people don't know the power of the athlete questionnaire.
It's just finding information, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and
there's so many interesting examples of that. There's so many interesting examples of that in terms of, like you said, like jump distance is a big one, isn't it? It's like, I didn't jump as high today. And it's like, well, yeah, but that's nervous system variability. It's not to the millimetre. It's not going to be. If you spoke to 100-metre sprinters, I guarantee they'll have like a PR time. Let's say they run 100 in, I don't know, 10 seconds or whatever. They'll rarely hit that.
Yeah.
In training, they might hit someday.
They'll also have a threshold today at the bottom end where they know, like, oh, I'm doing things wrong.
Yeah. And there's that fluctuation because that's the way that the body works. There's always variations day to day. In the same way that metric tracking, whether it's Whoop, whether it's Aura, whether it's whatever it is, there's always going to be. That's what variability is in the system. It's a complex system, and relying too much on metrics, like you said, is just paralysis by analysis. But also, you need a little bit in terms of, am I getting stronger? Am I moving faster? Do I feel better? Combining the objective with the subjective is such a powerful tool as well. But yeah, we should probably draw to a close, shouldn't we?
Yeah. So basically, do some lifting. A coach is going to be very useful to you because there will be certain mistakes you can make if you just train like everyone else, because you might end up with overuse patterns. You might end up only chasing the stuff that you like, which will then mean there's like glaring aspects of your physical capabilities that are missing. Jiu-jitsu is a weird sport. There are certain things that most traditional strength training programs don't really prioritize that actually really pay off in our sport, like arm training, rowing and pulling and things like that are much more important to us than they are in a lot of traditional strength sport programs. And just recognizing the difference between, is it a strength and conditioning coach, or is this just a person who trains powerlifters or strongmen, or because that's a different entity as well. And that's just going to allow you to make better decisions about who you want to work with. Because yes, you can do it yourself. It is possible, but most people lack the understanding and the kind of outside view that a coach can provide, where, I have a coach because there are still things where I'm like, this didn't fucking work. And now if I coached myself, as in I was a different person, I'd probably be able to be like, calm down, it's okay. But that's why I have Will, who externally goes, yeah, that's because of this. Or he can see like, oh, this is what you're doing wrong in that lift. Or, this is normal. It's absolutely fine. Like, don't worry about it. How do you feel on the mat? Great. Well, who fucking cares then? And I think that's the bit that sometimes people don't realize how useful it is to have someone who is in your corner, because they will try and have the conversations with you that other people won't, and they'll try and support you in a way that will allow you to do more of what you enjoy.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, mate. A pleasure as always.
Been a pleasure.
We will we'll have some more guests on. So if anyone's got any questions, like if you have any strength and conditioning questions, just leave them down below. But equally, if you've got any suggestions or recommendations for who we should have on, because we're looking for some people in the jiu-jitsu space to talk to.
Please just don't send us every fucking bullshit fucking recommendation, though. Does me fucking it in.
No, do it. I want to see how upset Andrew gets.
I'll just tell you to fuck off.
Right. Cheers, dude.
Yeah, pleasure. See you in a bit. Cheers, guys.